But Macy Gray defends her transgender comments that she made during an interview with Piers Morgan. So, of course, Piers Morgan, controversial in his own right. Yesterday's episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored is where she did the interview at. Macy Gray spoke about a couple of things. Her controversial thoughts on changing the American flag. We talked about that at the time when she mentioned that. Her strict definition of who can be considered a woman. And this is really what's earned her this backlash. Who she considers to be a woman. And so she's got this online, pushback. And some folks are trying to say that her statements are transphobic. During this interview with Piers Morgan's 57 years old. He brought up this op-ed that she wrote. She's 54 years old, by the way. So she wrote this op-ed for Market Watch last year. And she called the U.S. flag tattered, dated, divisive, and incorrect. And she compared it to the American flag. The Confederate flag. And she said it's time for a redesign of that. And she said that it represents, the past. And we need something now that represents diversity and present day America. So she talked about that. That got folks, riled up. And she stood by those comments. She said that reboot the Constitution, the flag, all the old standards that our ancestors lived by were right for the times that they lived in, but we live in different times now. And she said, to me, what the states do best is diversity, is culture. You know what I mean? Without culture in America, you really don't have much going on. And they went back and forth about that. And then it went to something that Piers Morgan said that most public figures are too terrified to even say what they think a woman is, and asked Macy Gray to define a woman. And this is what has some folks up in arms. Some folks agree with her. So when asked her definition of a woman, she said that I would say a human being with boobs, you have to start there, and a vagina. She said that. And so Piers Morgan said that the dictionary definition of a woman is quite straightforward, seeming to equate it with Macy Gray's personal meaning of the word. To which the singer responded with comments about pronouns. See, now that's getting confusing. The whole he, she, they, Macy Gray said. It's a bit like this whole issue of transgenders in sports. I support all trans rights to fairness and equality, Piers Morgan said, and Macy Gray agreed. Piers Morgan continued, but not where you have people born to obvious physical superior bodies transitioning and then thrashing the women at their sport. Macy Gray agreed. And I will say this, and everybody's going to hate me, but as a woman, just because you go and change your parts doesn't make you a woman. Sorry, she said. And Piers Morgan asked, you feel that? She said, I know that for a fact. But if you want me to call you a her, I will, because that's what you want. But that does not make you a woman just because I call you a her and just because you got a surgery. Yeah, there are a lot of so-called celebrities that will not touch this topic with a 10-foot pole. Not touch a topic with a 10-foot pole. Very eventful week. Absolutely. Shout out to South Africa. Good morning. It's night over here and morning in South Africa. What's going on in South Africa? Like, what is the biggest news item in South Africa? I'd like to hear that on Instagram. People do feel that their biological sex, and then there's gender identity added, Piers Morgan. You can identify as whatever you like. That's the freedom we live in. But actually, you can't change the mechanics of biological sex. They are what they are. Women go through just a completely unique experience, and surgery or finding yourself doesn't change that. Macy Gray continued, being a little girl is a whole epic book, and you can't have that just because you want to be a woman. Whole lot to unpack there. She's very outspoken, and I appreciate her honesty. I appreciate her saying what she feels. Now, if you remember, there was some lady. What was her name? Rachel something. Rachel Dozer something. I always screw up her last name. Anyway, she was a white lady who identified as black. Right? She said that she grew up around black people or whatever, and she identified as black, and for so long she was passing in society as a black woman when she actually was white. Right? Now, of course, some folks will say, "Oh, it's not the same thing," and nothing is the same thing, right? We have different scenarios that we have to kind of equate together and find some commonality. So she said she identified as being black and lived her life that way until she was outed. Now, because she identified as black, and because maybe she filled it out on some applications and she wanted people to call her that, did that make her black? No, it didn't. Now, she can support the culture. She can be down with it. She can be an ally, right? And she can twist her hair. And she wore her hair in braids like a lot of black women do. But that didn't make her black, right? So Macy Gray is coming at this from that perspective and saying that I'll call you what you want. I will say that because that's what you asked me to do, but that does not make you a woman. That does not, because you have a surgery does not make you a woman. And then, supporters of what she is trying to speak out against will say that that's all it takes is them to feel it, them to identify it as it, and that makes them that. And we're at two opposite ends of the spectrum. Can you just decide, or as they may say, it's not decision, and then it's so many parsing of the words. It was not decide. It's it's what I was, or I feel that, or I've always felt that, and you can't tell somebody what they feel, right? But what they feel does not change what they are, is what Macy Gray is saying, and Piers Morgan is saying, and so many others say, but they are scared to say this. So I've been watching her social media, and she's been going back and forth with folks about this. She's entitled to say what she feels. And because the community that she's saying this about is almighty and all powerful, many folks don't touch it with the 10-foot pole. Now, I agree with many things that she said. I agree that you should be able to be called whatever you want. You should not be discriminated against because you want to be called whatever you want to be called. And if somebody says, look, don't call me Jimmy, call me Sam. Okay, Sam, right? Cool, no problem, right? If somebody says, call me she, fine, call her she, whatever, and that's fine. And, if you want to live your life a certain way, you should live your life a certain way. But if you want to get into this particulars, you want to get into the mud of it, you can also change your mind and say, no, I'm going to live as however you were born. And then you switch back. Is Bruce Jenner really a woman now? That's the question. Is he? She? Is Caitlyn really a woman? What if Caitlyn decides, I want to live as Bruce now? So now we undo everything. She gets a divorce from being a woman, and now she goes back to being a man, and then we're supposed to switch. Because it's all in what she feels. He feels. They feel. Right? It can be very confusing. And just because you disagree with something, just because you question it, just because you have a thought different than whatever the person is saying, does not mean that it is a phobia. Does not mean that you fear it. Does not mean that you hate it. Doesn't mean any of that. But this negative connotation has been put on these very sensitive subjects, and it causes all type of controversy and confusion. And it is what it is. I'm not scared to talk about it. She has her thoughts, and I happen to agree with her thoughts. Now, doesn't matter what I think, right? It doesn't matter what she thinks. You can say whatever you want to say. As it relates to the trending news in Africa, he's saying trending news items are 27 underage that are allegedly poisoned at a local club. This happened in his city, in East London. Google it. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna check that out. As it relates to transgenders in sports, I mean, this is just not right. When you have this, you have folks that were born as men that now identify as women and get into female sports and then dominate, and then everybody just says, "Oh, that's a woman," right? So, are we saying that a lady, someone born as a lady, can transition to a man and then play in the NFL? Well, is that what we're saying? Well, we can't be saying that. We can go on about this. But you know how I feel. You know how Macy Gray feels. You know how Piers Morgan feels. I like to know how you feel. Let me know in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok at The Diamond K Show, of course. onfire-tv.com, thediamondkshow.com, djdiamondk@gmail.com.